Welcome. This reading is of Imafore's Betrayal. Imafore's Betrayal. Kourend is a fascinating kingdom. It was formed over 1,000 years ago by settlers who had fled the God Wars. You'd think that this would make it a peaceful kingdom, but the truth is quite the opposite. Kourend has probably been the home of more violence than the rest of Gielinor combined. There are many notable wars in Kourend's history, the Age of Strife and the War of the Five Houses, to name a couple. However, one of the more interesting conflicts is the most recent one, the war with Varlamore. Of particular note is the event that started it, Imafore's Betrayal. The kingdom of Varlamore was formed in a very similar way to Kourend, by those fleeing the Age of Strife. Unlike Kourend, Varlamore managed to avoid conflict for nearly 1,000 years, and in that time it became one of the most prosperous kingdoms in the world. All that changed when Emperor Imafore inherited the throne. For the first few years of Imafore's rule, Varlamore remained the peaceful and prosperous kingdom that it had always been. However, this was not set to last. To celebrate his 30th birthday, Imafore hosted a great feast, one he claimed would be remembered for years to come. He invited people from across Varlamore to join him, but as well as that, he also invited the royal family of Kourend. Upon their arrival in Varlamore, the royal family were treated with the highest respect. They were given a tour of the entire kingdom by the emperor himself. From the floating city of Tempestus to the peak of Proudspire, he showed them everything that Varlamore had to offer. Once the tour was complete, he personally led them to his great palace in the capital of Civitas, Ilafortis. There, they spent the night in the company of the emperor, looking forward to the next day's feast. The day of the feast came, and it was even more lavish than the emperor had claimed. There were no fewer than 50 different dishes to choose from, with entertainment provided by some of the finest performers from the Tempestus College of Bards. It was towards the end of the feast that the speeches began. Various rulers and officials from across the kingdom stood up to praise and thank the emperor. Finally, the emperor himself stood up. That was when it happened. The emperor called for the servants to top up every wine glass in the room. For the royal family, he requested something extra special. He had the servants open a barrel of his finest Alderan red. Then he made a toast to the royal family of Kourend. The rest of the guests looked on, some in horror, others in delight. The entire royal family collapsed before the emperor, who looked on with a smile on his face. Alright, we've reached the end of that very clear and direct Game of Thrones reference. I haven't even really watched Games of Thrones, but I've seen that scene because one of my friends is really into that show. I think they changed it enough to avoid a copyright issue, but yeah, that's what that scene reminded me of, just a Game of Thrones Easter egg. I think there's too much of that in the game already as is, but it is interesting with Kourend. I wonder if they intend on matching Zaya's lore with Game of Thrones and doing like a sort of parallel storyline with that. That could be interesting without rubbing it into our faces that Game of Thrones exists too much. But as for the lore itself, bit of Zaya's history, pretty interesting with the conflict there. We've only seen Karen, we haven't been to Varlamore yet, so that's a whole nother area of Zaya to potentially explore in the future. So we have Karen, Mount Quidamortum, and now Varlamore coming up. Well, the 5 houses of Karen, each one of those houses is like a whole kingdom in itself. But that's it for this book, guys. See you next time. Peace.